Thank you for turning to page 121. Welcome back to page 121. Today I'm going to take a look at a product that was very welcome when it came out in 1983. This is the improved box set of the World of Greyhawk. This is an update to the glossography that was published in 1980. Features the Darlene map as shown right here. And I'm going to go into what was in the booklets and how it fleshed out a lot of the information for the World of Greyhawk. There's even information in the booklets that it ended up in other things like Unearthed Arcana. So I'm going to go ahead and put the box up, and we're going to take a look at what was inside. This is the box set that came out in 1983. It had the Darlene map inside, as I said, and it also had a couple of books. I'm going to go ahead and show the front of the box here. I'm going to flip it over and show the back. This was very welcome for anybody running a Greyhawk campaign, which I was, because the information we had in Greyhawk up to the time was just the glossography, which I reviewed in an earlier video, and what we got out of Dragon Magazine. The Dragon Magazine information was incredibly useful, but it was all over multiple issues of the Dragon. So if I'd go to a game that I was running, I'd have to be sure to grab the appropriate issues of the Dragon. Photocopiers were not a thing at the time. Well, they existed, of course, but they weren't readily available. You had to work a job that had one, or somehow have access to the local library. They weren't commonly available for your everyday person. So it was not easy to just take a page from the Dragon magazine and photocopy it for your own use. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the box, and we're going to take a look at exactly what you got inside. Okay. Book 1 that you got in this box set was the Guide to the World of Greyhawk Fantasy Setting. It's a catalog of the land of Flanus, being the eastern portion of the continent of Auric on Orth. The idea was that this was your overview of how it was to actually live on Orth. It has a lot of the history of Auric, the continent the World of Greyhawk sits on. The heraldry again. This was present in the smaller pamphlet. And then we get a lot about the moons. I actually wasn't until this release that I actually bothered noticing that there were 2 moons on Orth. Prior to this, I just done the standard one. Luna and Selene are the 2 moons. We got the days of the week. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit. We got the days of the week in Greyhawk. We got the seasons as named. And how you would plant, what you would plant, where. There's a lot of detail in the climate, the trees that were common in the Flanus, and the history of Auric. This was important because this gave us all the great migrations, gave us the timeline for the invoked devastation, a lot of the seminal items that happened in the Greyhawk campaign. And then population and races of the Flanus. This would be primarily human races. The Flan, the Iridians, that sort of thing. Ancient languages. I use these sigils quite a bit in games where I would actually develop messages that were on the wall of the crypt or whatever that would be use these, and the players would have to go ahead and decipher them. And then we get an overview of the political divisions, in other words, all the countries that are brought out. So this is very useful. Everything is alphabetical, and it's a lot more fleshed out than we originally had. Then we had geographic and just different bodies of water, the Azure Sea, Lake Quag, the hills and highlands, swamps and marshes, and so on. And then it came down to the gods. This was the section that I probably dog-eared the most out of this. These gave us the deities of Greyhawk in one place for the first time. And not only that, it broke them down by greater gods, lesser gods, and demigods. A lot of this information had already been in Dragon Magazine, but again, this was a very handy one book reference for all these different deities and how they would interact. These were really useful for developing the clergy for the various gods. Just a great addition to the Greyhawk campaign. And then the Royal and Noble Precedents, General Honorifics, and then the Orders of Knighthood in Greyhawk. Social rank, and then some more of the house shields. Coming over to the second book that came in the set, that was the Glossography. This, if the first book was for general use, this one was kind of more for DMs. It had a lot more information that was important for the DM to know when developing their campaign, as opposed to an average player character. So we're going to take a quick look through this smaller book. This book's about 48 pages. How to read the map coordinates of the old Darlene map. Rates of travel if you're traveling on road or across country. Encounter tables. These were really useful. It gave you a large sample of encounter tables and then would tell you where you were likely to meet those encounters. So if you're in Selene and High Folk, you could take a look and there's an elven band that you'd encounter. Save the DM a lot of work. Coming down to the weather in the world of Greyhawk. This was big, and a lot of us jumped right in. There was an article in Dragon Magazine, I believe, just prior to this that really dealt with the weather in detail, and that's that article. That article was brought over into this, largely unchanged. And for the first time, we had rainstorms and snowstorms. You could have that as, man versus nature be part of your story. I dove into this with both feet. The DMs I was playing under at the time dove into this in a huge way. And we enjoyed it, but then eventually it got the weather tended to overshadow the actual campaign. While weather still plays an important part in many of my games, a lot of my games, of course, happen in dungeons, which by definition don't have weather. But this was still a very welcome addition. And then the next section, if I can find her, Adventures in the World of Greyhawk. This was really kind of neat. There's a nice adventure here, The Lost Passage of the Sulois. This is Rodent's Tunnel. This was the way out from the Sea of Dust, underneath, depending on where you want to put it, underneath the Hell Furnaces, which is where I placed it. It was just a nice thing. I mean, the Werewolves of the Menowwood, the Quest of the Mist Golem, all kinds of different good adventure hooks to get your player characters moving. Player character's place of birth. You can throw percentage dice to see where your PC was born, as opposed to just deciding for yourself. And then personages and quasi-deities. This introduced comeliness, the wonderful 7th stat that was formalized in Unearthed Arcana. We all have comeliness because we use the later first edition AD&D character sheets, but frankly nobody used it. Just like charisma. Charisma is only important to certain character classes, paladin, druid, that sort of thing. Comeliness is even less important. It can be fun sometimes, that's it. But these gave us all the quasi-deities. These guys had also previously appeared in Dragon Magazine, but if you want to use any of them, here were the actual breakdowns, and it was all in one place again. And now the deities. This gave the breakdown for standard divine abilities based on whether you were a greater god, lesser god, or demigod. And then gave us the breakdown a la deities and demigods of all the gods. This, of course, would be the avatars. But that didn't stop us from sticking St. Cuthbert of the Cudgel into a game now and again and having him fight, side by side with the player characters. Ayuz made frequent appearances, still does in my campaign, as Ayuz, since he is a god native to Greyhawk. And Neril, all kinds of goodies here. And then an index to where you would find the cities based on the coordinates, in case you want to use the coordinates off the Darlene map. So, very useful box set. It retailed for $12 or $15, if I recall correctly, and was, in my opinion, $12 or $15 very well spent. Just some closing thoughts on it. I love the Darlene map. I always have. Paizo came out with a great World of Greyhawk map that has tremendous detail in the old Dragon magazine, and I believe is still available through their website for about $10. I have a few copies of that map, and I love it. But there's something I'll always love about the old Darlene map. This thing is just beautiful. This actual map was presented to me by one of my player characters as a gift as he left our campaign, oddly enough. He gave it to us. He bought the box set, pulled the map out, framed it, and this is hung on my wall in various places I've lived for over 3 decades. It's shown a little wear and tear, but then aren't we all? This map comes out at the beginning of every campaign and most games I run, so I can show the player characters where exactly the campaign is taking place. My primary campaign, as I've said before, is the city of Greyhawk up into the kingdom of Furiandi. I recently concluded a campaign that ran in the county of Sundi, and I'm currently starting up a campaign that's in the Caliphate of Ekbir. That's kind of a Conan flavor campaign that I'm starting up. So lots of different places you can go and lots of fun you can have in the world of Greyhawk. That's it for today at this look at the second offering of the World of Greyhawk map set. And if you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to the channel. And thank you for turning to page 121. I'll see you next time. Well, that closes the book on another episode of page 121. Please leave your comments below, and if you enjoyed what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.